hey, look, you know the war is happening. You know the food shortages are real. It's no one's fault. Don't blame us.
And they're going to look for a new grow zone to set up immediately because out of necessity, if we're going to lose 20 to 30% of global crop yields, they're going to instantly look for a play to go back in. And if they could set up North Africa and the Sahel to do that, that gives a second excuse for that layer of we have to go there now. Your perception of reality is going to change.
Say your perception of reality is going to change. What do you mean?
I mean, just the way that humanity views the meat suit that decodes this construct in front of you will change in a different magnetic field. You talked about cymatics. You change the frequency, the shape changes on the plate.
Yeah.
So change the magnetic field, and then how does your brain, the lobes of your brain electrically connected, and that electrical connection is going to vibrate higher? How's that going to change how the information flows between and what you optically see or hear?
They did experiments where they put this helmet on people and blasted them with massive electromagnetic waves, and they said they felt the presence of God.
Yes.
What if there is, I don't know, an X-40 that fries all the electronics and then just shocks people's brains into feeling the presence of God?
We're just lifted.
What would that civilization turn into? What would we turn into?
I am glad you brought this up.
That's wild.
He's on it.
I'm glad you brought this up because we're entering in the age of, I don't know if you know what the hydrogel platform is. It's basically nanotech, right? So you can affect nanotech with electromagnetic waves, and they're doing experiments on rats and on like flies and stuff. So I get that that's not human, but they can control the behavior of either the rat or the flies, from everything to making them excited sexually, hungry, not hungry, mad, angry, all of that stuff. So if you can imagine, think about a world that has less of a magnetic field. So in other words, the background magnetic field of the Earth is not as strong as it normally is. It would be a lot easier to use these programs to manipulate people.
Now, the hunger and starvation part's not so much there, although in some parts of the world it is. But in terms of people losing their minds, but it just seems like people have lost it.
Well, and like what he just brought up, you could literally make someone feel like they're having a divine experience.
Yeah.
And then think about this. If you're looking up at the sky, and this is probably what a lot of ancient people, this is probably why a lot of the petroglyphs are the way they are. They were looking up at the sky, seeing all this stuff, and this is a small flare. Imagine, like I said, an X-40 or plus, what kind of auroras you would be seeing. Maybe the dancing squatter man on the poles or something like that. So you would just imagine massive amounts of solar radiation coming in when there is no magnetic field, when it's collapsing. And right now it is. And we know that the last time that happened, like I said, about 42,000 years ago, Neanderthal disappeared.
When I was younger, there was this this cafe in Chicago that they said was haunted. And someone said they were pushed down the stairs. There's a bunch of crazy stories about it. And it's in like this forest preserve kind of area. And so I started reading more and more about ghosts, because who doesn't love reading about ghosts? And I was reading these studies that some researchers, because I'm not interested in some ghost hunter going in with a fake device and deciding that it means there's ghosts. No. I want to know what actual researchers who are exploring this through empirical means. And they said that they think it may be the result of magnetism or low frequency vibrations, which cause disturbing feelings in people. You can't just feel the vibration. It's too low frequency or the magnetic waves, but it has an impact on how your brain is functioning, how your body is functioning. And then you start to feel a presence in the room with you and other things like this.
Yeah.
The dollar's being eviscerated as the U.S. is creating $100,000 of debt per second. BRICS nations introduce a new global currency called the unit. The unit would be pegged at 40% to gold and 60% to a basket of BRICS currencies, a statement token using the gold held within their borders. What do you think is going to happen with metals? Call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. And Patriot Gold Group has the No Fee for Life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver. And you may qualify for the No Fee for Life IRA. On qualifying rollovers, give them a call, 888-546-7020 for your free investor guide today. And now on with the video.
I'm just wondering, we talk about the X-40, the massive solar flare the various ways that society will go insane if they all of a sudden experience a variety. Some people are going to think they're seeing demons. Some people will see angels. Some will see machine elves. Who knows?
That article that just came out, of people seeing these weird demon faces.
Yeah.
They're actually considering it a medical condition now. Like,
What? People seeing demons?
Yeah, but
please look
that's
this up.
That's just
Please.
propaganda to help keep the demons safe.
honestly, that's where my brain's going now. It's like, all right, so we're going to start seeing these things. That's exactly where my mind went.
I'm waiting for the
new one?
There's your perception reality change.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
if we
yeah.
start to see through the darkness? We actually see the aura of, or
Well, Tim and
the being itself.
Wait, recently about the glasses and the certain filters people have to see.
Oh, the Dionysian blue glass.
Right, the blue
What is
glass.
that?
Remember that thing? I think
I've been looking for a pair of those. If anybody has a pair of Dionysian blue glasses, I'd
pilots.
want them.
What is that?
Second that.
What is
Can you
it?
explain
Yeah.
what those do and what happened when people look through them?
It's multi-layers of this glass that allows you to see in a different light spectrum, not frequency, but a spectrum. But I guess they're the
And
same.
some people were
But you
saying
can
the
they saw
vibration.
You
demons.
just buy these.
is that like the
Used to be able to. They've making that glass very difficult to find now.
is that like the thing about the original night vision
That's
that made the
also what I was
soldiers
getting
go
at.
nuts?
Soldiers were
Yes.
using that originally, and they all saw just creatures
Straight up
walking.
monsters.
Yeah, straight up.
What?
Yeah.
Yo, look at this story from NBC News. Rare disorder causes man to see people's faces as demonic. The condition causes faces to appear distorted. My first thought was I woke up in a demon world. Yo, like, what if you did?
Yeah, no, you did.
You mean to tell me that he literally saw people with bat-like pointed ears and stretched out faces and eyes?
This was right around the solar eclipse. Very odd.
Maybe he's very sensitive to electromagnetic field changes, and he's seeing it before us.
It's
Right,
like
'cause I don't know if the sun can actually.
a lot of
do
people
that.
think that, if we do have one of these big flares that will be put back in the Stone Age. Do you know how long it took Elon Musk to put up SpaceX?
Mm-hmm.
Those are disposable satellites, low Earth orbit. They don't care if those go down.
Right.
They could just put up
Dicinium.
another 100 of them in one
Dicinium?
launch.
Right.
It's just
right.
a matter of
spell it?
time before there's a
DIC.
massive blackout.
Why?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that it wouldn't be
ANIN.
like the end of things. It would be
Real
a reset,
aura.
definitely.
Yeah, they live.
But they could set up all of this stuff really easy now. We've got to where everything's disposable. So they could put up internet in a matter of a week after something like that.
Right.
Yeah, you can buy
But it
them.
wouldn't be for us.
Right. It's for,
They're the
we're not gonna
original
get
chemical formula.
that. You found them?
I'm sorry, we got into the middle of the conversation. Didn't interrupt there.
You found the glasses? It just never happened.
It is false to claim that they've made the dye illegal because of supernatural properties.
I'm saying, was
I
it
thought
the
you were saying the
original
opposite.
glass
Sign and
production
die.
compared to today's modern glass production? You're looking at two different types of production models, levels, and years. So I'm sure what's being done now might not be the same original formula for the glass that it was when the military was using it, and it freaked out the soldiers so bad. They're like, we can't put these on anymore.
I remember hearing something about that exact thing there.
They made it illegal because people can see the astral plane when placed between two glasses.
Interesting.
So it's
I mean, it sounds like an easy
mushrooms
thing to
without
test, right?
having to eat anything, I guess.
Yeah, we'll have to get
That's
a
what I'm
pair.
saying. I'm looking for a pair. If anybody has them, please, I'll buy them, or you can send them. I want to test
Well,
them.
can you not get? They say it's not illegal. Can you make them? Can we make a pair of these glasses and give
Any
them to
chemists
Alex
out there
Stein
that
and
we could get
Antarctica?
help?
Right, just
We'll
get
break
some
through the ice
glass and
wall.
make them. And then
Right,
the
right. But
electrons.
I read about this like
See the water.
14 some odd years ago, and it was like a science magazine, like Popular Science, being like, "Hey, look what we're doing."
Right.
So the idea that anybody's going to act like it's not real is just an absurdity. The question is the scale of the ability. Can we use a high-powered laser to make it to cloud seed in a small area? Yeah. Can we move a hurricane? And so, again, the fact checkers are saying, yeah, we do cloud seeding. Yeah, we have lasers. Yeah, we have all that stuff. Like everyone agrees, you can't make or move a hurricane.
I don't think you can either. I just don't.
Yeah.
I think it's too big. It's out of their control.
30 miles wide, the amount of energy. It's like when Trump talked about nuking a hurricane, they're like, you can't. The amount of energy in a nuke is you would need like 1 million nukes or 100,000, some ridiculous number.
Well, like I said, I'm not saying that they can't manipulate stuff. I just don't
Right.
think they can manipulate it on that scale.
Right.
Yeah, so I have some steering numbers here for you. So, Brian, this is for you. This comes right from the Tech Symposium in 1997 and the different persons that are there from Philips Laboratory. Now, if you can go to slide number 30, I just wanted to validate this is a true study here. Oh, is it from New Mexico? Okay. So we got your energy densities right here. So, the reason I even had found this document originally was I was looking at the total solar irradiance on solar power output, saying if the sun decreases its TSI, that all these forecasts out for solar panel production for cities and towns is going to be underestimated because they're TSI is going to continue to decrease. So if they're basing their ROI numbers on some sort of like 1340, if it drops to 1335 or 1330, that's not going to have enough power output and they're going to fall short on the revenue projections. But and the reason it brought me to this here is the energy reaching the top of an atmosphere from the sun. If we're looking at 10 to the 17th joules, and again, this is interchangeable with watts, you're looking at 17 quadrillion watts per second. Was that right? With the zeros behind there, 17? Yeah, quadrillion, I would believe.
I'm not the best with that stuff.
I think 17 is way more than quadrillion.
Okay. Well, I'll be conservative and say quadrillion for that. And the NexRad radar towers, I did look it up this morning, 750,000 watts, which is 0.75 megawatts. So I'm wondering, just on the math of it, even if we have large...
We're close. It's 15 zeros in quadrillion.
So if we're going to steer a hurricane or bend a thunderstorm here at 10 to the 9th, so you got 9 zeros behind that, how many of these NexRad towers putting out, 750,000 watts do they have to use in conjunction with other technologies? Because I'm asking the question because I'm just trying to understand the math on it.
Right.
So, and then there's one right here at the very bottom, 10 to the 14th for the hurricane. That's right in the quadrillion range as well.
So it would be 100 quadrillion. So you're basically right.
But I'm just wondering the energy input on these NexRad towers to actually bend a hurricane. So if NexRad's coming in at not a megawatt, but just under 1 million watts, and you're trying to push something that's into the, quadrillion watt range, like how does that work? Does it set up a blocking pattern? I'm just trying to figure out the math myself.
There's a few different theories on it. Now, when hurricanes, the rapid intensification term, when these things are rapidly intensifying on landfall, basically, at that point, the storms are seeded with a particle that can then be manipulated by the NexRad towers. Now, it's a push and pull type thing. So you're not really controlling the hurricane itself. You're controlling the atmosphere around it to steer it, if that makes sense. So you're not taking all this energy that you need to move an actual hurricane, this physical thing. You're controlling the different atmospheric pressures around it. You're creating a pressure in one direction that will alter it. If it's moving in one direction and you have something in its way, it's going to go around it. So you can create a pressure, which is a lot easier to do than actually control a hurricane. And the term's called the Fujiwara effect, when two low-pressure systems wrap around each other and they do this weird dance. And it happened over land. That doesn't usually happen. That's what swung Helen into Asheville, in those areas, and just sat there. Sorry about that. Just sat there. So there's a pressure there already for that thing to mimic around. All you have to do is create these little pressures, and the hurricane's going to work around those pressures. They don't always get it right, I don't think. I don't think they can just be like, all right, it's going to go here, here, or here. But again, I keep going back to this point where they started messing with these things 80 years ago. They didn't stop. There's no way they stopped doing it. So they probably found an easier way. You can control the atmosphere around these storms.
Where's the connection between these things?
Right.
And perhaps it's just so deeply entrenched and esoteric, you can't see it on the surface. And I accept that. But I also think that it's likely just seeded disinformation to stop you from actually understanding what's going on.
HAARP is probably an outdated doomsday device, but I also
But
I also think burning the ionosphere and the people who think it is being used to manipulate weather, they're saying HAARP will tell you they're only burning one hole above their spot in Alaska. People who think it's doing worse are saying that has a ripple effect through the ionosphere, which is then why people say the birds are having issues with the cryptochromes because of the ionosphere being affected. I don't know.
I think it's more
possible.
likely solar flares.
It could be that too, but is there solar flares? I should look into this. Is there solar flares that happen every time there's a mass death of birds falling out of the sky, migratory birds? That'd be something to map.
It would explain away food production losses in the Ukraine too. Like you could, taking a grain basket offline indefinitely for 100 years would be the masking cover for crop production declines globally, and why the reason there's not enough food, and why the reason we need to go to digital rationing cards, and why these terms are thrown around as equity and equality. If you're going to take away, what if the global food production declines are on a natural cycle forecastable, but they need all these other layers of the climate manipulation, the weather modification, the nuclear war, all these areas focused on bread baskets, because that wouldn't be as spooky to the planet as, by the way, we're going to continue to amplify, and these yields are going to get lower and lower and lower as we go through the rest of this cycle. Now, please just grow your own food at home. Don't rely on the traditional supply chains. Cross your fingers, but obey the rule of law. Pay your taxes and keep working.
So we've seen...
That's not going to happen.
We've seen farmers in the Netherlands being made to stop farming.
Right.
And this is crazy because we're talking about food prices going up. Why is this happening? You make a really interesting point in, let's just call it potentiality. I don't want to call it conspiracy theory because nuclear war is a potential. Russia uses low-yield tactical nuclear artillery in the eastern region of Ukraine because they want to create a barrier to stop. So the reasoning is, whatever, stop the Ukrainian push into Kursk or whatever. This contaminates the breadbasket of Europe, Ukraine, cutting out 20 to 30% of food production, which is already likely happening. Europe is now in a food shortage. The U.S. must provide relief. Food costs go through the roof. Food stores and food stockpiles in stores are down. The U.S. says it's because of Russia's aggression and the attacks and the use of nuclear weapons. The U.S. then implements food cards or an app you have to use to track your purchases, and not in the name of climate change, but in the name of, hey, look, you know the war is happening. You know the food shortages are real. It's no one's fault. Don't blame us.
And they're going to look for a new grow zone to set up immediately because out of necessity, if we're going to lose 20 to 30% of global crop yields, they're going to instantly look for a play to go back in. And if they could set up North Africa and the Sahel to do that, that gives a second excuse for that layer of we have to go there now.
You know, I'd say...
We got to save people, Tim.
And that's how you
5
usher in
years
Agenda
ago,
2030.
My point is just the possibility of governments exploiting conflict and crisis to implement massive global change to their benefit is 100% it happens.
How many times have we heard politicians are going to take advantage of a bad situation?
Right. Never let them
love this
go to waste.
stuff.
And we have talked about that exactly. You just kind of did a show that we did like maybe a year ago with the Ukraine thing. We talked about that. That's 30% of Europe's grain and stuff gone. And not only that, they don't even have to pop a nuke. All they have to do is have a problem with one of those power stations like Chernobyl that happens to be right there in that region as well.
What's Zaporizhia?
If you can shut down the local farmers in an area like in the UK or in Europe and the United States and kind of outlaw growing your own food, as it were. So like if you live in a lot of cities, like say Oklahoma City, for example, you can't grow tomatoes, you can't grow herbs and stuff. You have to do it in special ways on your own property out of the city limits. And then sometimes it's legal, and then the city will come in and like mow people's stuff before they even went to court to fight that, well, it's legal, so, well, we already mowed it, so, here's a bill for the thing. But like where I'm at, you can't have chickens, you can't have bees, because they're saying you're living in the, the city limits. But where we're at, the city limits is the only place you can get potable water to do those things. So in a sense, they're outlawing it. And if you think about that,
that's why
if you could outlaw all of the food growing and make it difficult in the Western world and then put a grow zone over in, I don't know, Africa or Central America, then you have a monopoly on the food and what kind of food it is.
Do you guys want to do any final thoughts and then shout out your social media?
Yeah, it's time for you to take autonomy of your own food growing and medical care and knowing the basics that we did when we were in the Wild West, for example. From my opinion, we're going to get wound back to the 1860s approximately, so start to live in that more pioneering lifestyle as your mentality and mind frame. Get with your neighbors, get with your community.
My advice to people is no one's going to come help you. You have to help yourself. You have to educate yourself. Everything about your life has to be self-sufficient, especially when it comes to emergencies.